Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome to the Rachel Varga podcast. I'm thrilled to have you joining me here today. This is a very exciting interview with Diane Kazer. And just to kind of preface this, Diane is actually one of the functional practitioners who really was one of the first to actually open my eyes to some of the toxins and dangers that are actually present in the skin and rejuvenation world. So when you hear me talking about research that I'm writing, which every research article I'm writing now, I'm talking about how important it is to do client assessment and make sure that, those that don't have autoimmune conditions or are, displaying obvious signs of being inflamed don't pursue rejuvenation at that point. And I'm really spreading awareness in the industry. And it's because of practitioners like Diane Kazer, who's on the show here today, that have really opened my eyes up to then help open your eyes. So we're going to get started in just a second. Please be present in today's episode. Make some notes. Be active in the comment section. Leave me your questions, and we will get to them in today's show. Welcome to the Rachel Varga podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Varga, double board certified aesthetic nurse specialist since 2011 with over 20,000 rejuvenation procedures performed. I'm an international clinical trainer for other physicians and nurses as well, celebrity skin expert, having been featured on some of the world's top proactive aging podcasts, and much, much more. Learn more at rachelvarga.ca and enjoy today's episode. All right, I have an exciting episode in store for each and every one of you. In today's episode here on the Rachel Varga podcast, we are going to learn about non-toxic beauty and rejuvenation options to look and feel radiant and not sacrifice our well-being, our vibrancy, and our health in an effort to get that fountain of youth or use that magical beauty product or that rejuvenation option that's promising the world, and really thinking twice about everything. And is that something that we're being offered potentially going to make us sick and add to our toxicity and inflammation? These are things we need to think about in today's world of being a conscious consumer. So Diane Kazer, a pro soccer player turned functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, certified detox specialist, toxins expert, courage coach, and holistic beauty expert, Diane has had many challenging health conditions and has built recovery protocols to successfully overcome them. With this experience, she has helped thousands of clients around the world as their last resort from failed attempts at everything. Diane created the Cleanse, Heal, Ignite Holistic Health Institute and Warrior Detox Program, certifying coaches and teaching clients to activate their intuition to self-heal, empowering them with lifelong tools to reverse autoimmune disease, breast implant illness, hormonal imbalances, chronic pain, gut infections, emotional trauma, and perfectionism, hello type A biohackers, through functional medicine labs, custom detox, and mastering mindset. She's the author of Killer Breasts, creator of the Explant Solution, producer of the Non-Toxic Beauty Summit, which I've also been on as well. Thank you, Diane, for having me. And 10-part Dying to Be Beautiful docuseries with David Ickel. Her mission is to inspire you to embrace your natural beauty and God-given gifts, shedding the ish that releases you to live your best life with love, laughter, and liberation. In this show, we dive deep into detoxing the 4 greatest things that can cause harm to a warrior, woman, and men's body, beauty, brain, breasts, reproductive organs, and the 3-step approach women are using to cleanse their bodies, heal their traumas, and ignite their courage to finally be free from chronic disease and mental and emotional burnout, and also probably pain. We'll cover the 5 key Ds of every successful detox. I'm actually on one right now. This is perfect. I'm going to get so much out of this too, I'm sure. And why it's the missing link to overcoming sickness, symptoms, and suffering. Prepare for an uplifting episode and uplifting upload to your cell health, so cellular health, slowing cellular aging. We talk about that a lot on the show. Self-love, which naturally illuminates your beauty, energy, immunity, and radiance. And also, before we move further in this episode, I always like to encourage you, if you're listening on the podcast, make sure you do subscribe to the Rachel Varga podcast on your favorite podcast platforms. Download the episode and listen on non-Bluetooth AirPods, and put your phone on airplane mode. Bonus points if you throw it in a Faraday cage. So you're consuming content, but you're not, inundating yourself with EMFs, which, yes, we're going to talk about EMFs in the skin. And yes, I am writing an academic paper on this very topic. Welcome, Diane Kazer. It is so lovely to have you on the show here today. How are you?
Oh, I'm amazing. I love being here with you. I love the work that you're doing for the world. And I love that you look at things from a 50,000-foot view and consider how all the parts connect. And this will be fun because you and I think and speak a lot alike. So thanks again for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. And for all of you listening, Diane has been on the show before, so she is a returning guest. And I always hope, it seems like my favorite people come on the show multiple times. I want to have you on like every month and all that stuff. And before we get into the episode, where can people find you?
Lots of places. I mean, I'm like you. I'm not so much on social media anymore.
Why don't we talk about that? That was a trick question, actually.
Oh, hey, what is our social media detox? Well, you're so cute. It feels like the one word would be freedom. It feels a lot more, being that we can be so type A and so perfectionistic and routine and everything has to be done in like a structured way. There's a lot more that I feel like I can do in person and a lot more that I can feel and hear God speaking through me. And my work feels a lot more intentional, and it feels like things just happen. They don't happen the way that I planned, but they are better. And isn't that the definition of God in your life, is that, you make plans and God laughs, and then God brings you something even better, even though it might not feel that way in the moment. But it just feels so surrendered, and I feel a lot more feminine, and I feel more, some women might think, oh, well, if I'm more feminine, then I'm not as strong. So that's part of my courage coaching, is teaching people to really feel into their deeper essence. So I'll find myself out in Sedona riding my horse, whereas I might have spent 2 hours working on a social media post, and I have that 2 hours now to go be out in God's
or
land.
Scrolling social media aimlessly, right?
Exactly, comparing, competing, and critically thinking and what I need to do next, and
buying ish you don't need that's probably going to make you sick from the ads.
Yeah, a lot more EMF exposure. And I'll talk about my story today too, on how I really got zapped and how God was like, nope, I don't want you so much involved in that anymore because it can hurt.
Well, it's funny, and I definitely want to talk about that because I am writing a literary review on EMFs and the skin. And of course, you're not going to find this stuff on your social media because that's bad for social media platform businesses, right? Obviously, you have to think about things this way. And I think I really like what you said about being the observer. And I think it's important that we don't respond and react like emotionally, but really take a step back and be the observer of what you're seeing, how you're seeing other people reacting. And yeah, earlier in March, I just was not feeling great. Just something was telling me that being on devices all the time was just making me more irritable. It was impacting my sleep and HRV. And I always noticed that I felt better when I did my 1 or 2 days off grid, right? 4x4ing in the woods, away from EMFs, like hours. We're talking like 200 kilometers out of cell phone reception. Oh. It's like, wow, I feel so good on these days. And I'd see it in my skin. My skin would be clear, even though I'm doing like way less in clinic rejuvenation. I went from like 60-40 in clinic at home to like now 10 to 90%, right? So 10% in clinic stuff, 90% at home stuff. So like, okay, there's got to be something to this. And it's related to reducing inflammation and your toxicity. So when you have started your social media detox, I know that you mentioned, oh, I missed your posts. It's kind of looking for you. Where'd you go? What is that like when you see people exit the system?
Oh, it feels like I have a teammate. It feels like I have a friend in freedom. I think that we're all inspiring each other in some way to exit the matrix, and in whatever way that looks like to us. And it's funny because like when I first moved to Sedona 2 years ago, I actually got a lot of downloads when I was sitting down by the creek and my feet were in the water, which is where I think that, we're with God and our higher self, which is, in my perspective, that's God. And I was like, whoa, I have some prison bars to still release myself from. And toxic beauty was a huge one. So it was like, for me, when I stopped doing the toxic beauty things and wearing my metaphoric mask to block this naturally beautiful, unique template that God has given me and every single one of us, I was like, well, what other freedoms am I going to find if I let go of something that I think is my comfort zone? And that's my metaphoric blanket of, this is how I matter. This is how I connect with the world. This is how I don't feel so alone. This is how I feel a part of tribe. This is just what I'm supposed to do. And it was like the 10 P's all came through my mind. And we'll talk about, this is not one of the P's. We'll talk about parasites today, but one of that's not on the list, but I should add it. There's 10 prison bars, and one of them, I wasn't even prepared to talk about this, but I'll just share it really quickly. It's physicians. It could be physicians that are prison bars where we're keeping ourselves stuck and caged and imprisoned. So it's pop culture. That's a big part of social media. We have to keep up with whatever trends are out there. And then it might be politicians, it might be our peers that we see everybody else doing toxic beauty things, or whatever it might be that everybody else is doing it. So why shouldn't I? And then it might be preachers, dogmatic religion and doing things that maybe are not really God's highest, but are very dogmatic and, shame-based. And then we're looking at parents. Parents you're trying to live up to your parents, but at the expense of your own soul's higher calling. And so there's 4 other P's that can keep going on. And one of them is, professors. What you learn in school is fact. It's not to be challenged. So I feel like, as I downloaded that one day, it just finally hit me 2 years later. I'm in a prison bar when I feel compelled, not in a creative sense, but compelled to post on social media, because it's just what you do. It's just how you keep up. It's how you stay relevant. It's how you, air quotes, get business. It's how you go to the top. And I'm like, that doesn't feel right anymore. I feel better when I'm, like you said, away from my phone or out in the middle of nowhere. And there's no obligations and there's no supposed to, there's no rules, there's no shoulds. And it feels so good.
I know, I'm tired of people shitting all over me. Sorry.
All
right. So I just got an email right before this. Juanita, one of my clients, love you so much. She emailed me. She needed some more products, body oil, skin supplements, collagen. It's actually a supplement I work with that actually has research to help with hot flashes. So if you're dealing with that, please email me, info@rachelvarga.ca. Happy to help. So Anita says something really lovely. She said, first, I applaud you for turning off social media. I mean, yes, I'm live streaming on Facebook and YouTube, but like the biggest one was really Instagram. It's just like a huge freaking time suck. She says, she said, I did that 5 years ago, and there were no words that can explain how life-changing and positive it is. I have truly added a daily prayer intention for people to do it, especially in my own family. I just think that's so sweet that like people behind the scenes are like, okay, maybe this like AI, EMF stuff might not be so good for us. And I think that detoxing from it is really, really important. Like you've experienced issues from it. I've experienced issues from it. I think that sometimes you mentioned safety. If you see people in like a disaster, they're clutching their phones. Like, what do you think this like freaking black box thing is going to do for you? No, you need to be in the present moment. You need to be aware of threats that are around you. This black box isn't going to do anything. It might help you post on social media or make a phone call or text, but maybe there's some more important things. So it's an illusion that it's like your safety clutch. It's actually making you sick, which is the irony. And the other thing you mentioned about the different prisms, and of course, this isn't medical advice. This is educational information only. If you think you have a medical condition, you must seek the guidance of a licensed physician. Bonus points if you can find a practitioner who's Western trained, but also practices functionally too, like the best of both worlds. That's what I could suggest. But we're noticing that traditional traditional systems are no longer working and serving us in our highest good, and they're collapsing. So like think positive, like stuff's happening. A lot of people, myself included, are looking at parallel structures and groups and how we can send and receive in and amongst one another without more greater external interferences. One of the reasons why I loved getting rid of social media was also like things like energetic projections and this lie we're told that we need. I mean, we both have online businesses. It's a pretty freaking bold move for us to say no. And then after that, I had the second best month in my business. I'm like, okay, this is a clear sign. I'm on the right page. This is clearly an illusion that you need Instagram to have a business. Like, what a lie that we are being told.
Same.
Tell me about your like epiphany when you left, how you felt better. I just put more time into my podcast, my newsletter, my client care, my one-on-one care, and it's been so much better. Why do people care so much about like me feeding the ducks that day? Sorry.
I know. Or the food that I ate, or, you know, it's so funny. I go outside with my horse, and you know, the old me would have been like, oh, I'm going to video this and put this on Instagram and say an inspiring thing. And like, wait, what am I doing this for? Is this like a look at me? And this is no disrespect to anybody who's doing it, because we all do it. We're all human, you know, but it's like, okay, am I really inspiring them, or am I depleting myself?
Or stroking my ego a little bit? I mean, let's be real here.
Oh yeah.
Vanity metrics.
Yeah, look what I can do. And like, you want to be me, right? Yeah. Like, it's so weird how we've been programmed. And now I look at it like kind of like the numbing out or the addictions, and that's what it is. It's literally, when you just said it's a social media detox. We have to detox from the things that are making us ill. Otherwise, the word detox wouldn't even be relevant in that statement or that act, right? So, or even like an EMF detox, which I think is really important. And I'll speak to the connection between you can't detox the body chemically or, you know, from an infection perspective when we're in this constant barrage of EMFs and RF fields and magnetic frequencies. It's impossible. Your body is in a state of fight or flight constantly.
Your blood isn't flowing. It's being stuck together, and you're having fibrin, which are clotting factors form. You can't carry nutrients, oxygen to your vital organs, your skin, and you can't take away toxins through the blood. So 100% echo that. There's a ton of research on this stuff. You can literally see this happening in live blood analysis.
Tons. I work with doctors in Mexico, and they do live blood cell analysis. And, you know, we can see, you know, the patients that I've been working with down there at the clinic in Tijuana. It's called American Biodental, and I work with Dr. Bergman. He's a amazing chiropractor. He's been a miracle worker for years. And I've been looking at his patients' live blood cell analysis that I work with down there. And you can see these literally, they're clotted together. Whether or not someone has taken something for, you know, there are certain chemicals that can clot, you know, cause blood clotting. But if you look at, there's a book that, I don't know if you've talked about this in your podcast before, but it's called The Invisible Rainbow. Arthur Schwarzberg, I think is how you say it. It's an amazing book. It's one of those books that you might hear me say it and go, oh, okay, maybe one day, but you guys get it. And if you get it and read it, you'll think, whoa, this is like EMFs and RFs have been the thing that has been causing a lot of illness, I'll just say, since the late 1800s, since electricity and electric fields were erected. And, you know, if you really look at one that's called the Eiffel Tower in Paris, you know, people who were living around or pregnant around these big electrical field grids, they got really sick with what looked like viral outbreaks. And that's what they were saying was like the Spanish flu. And it's like, is it really a flu, or is it that I'm EMF toxic, or at that time, electro frequency toxic? So there's a huge connection point. I'm not saying it's the only thing, but there's like the 50,000 foot view, which is why, you know, my ISH, my acronym is that why we feel like ISH is because of 4 things: stress, hormone imbalances, infections, and toxins. And it spells ISH, obviously. So it's not just one thing, but those frequency fields are very, very damaging. God made us to have electrical frequency fields that are mitochondria. That's the voltage that we were created to create within. But then those things get disrupted from without. And when our mitochondria can't do their job, no wonder why you're so tired. No wonder why you have pain. No wonder why you can't lose weight. No wonder why your skin can't turn over and your hair can't grow on its own, because we're getting literally zapped from the inside out. And it's also disrupting our ability to let go of the toxins that make us sick.
Yes, it is. We are, you know, on the same page here. So I really like my energy. I like feeling pure. I like feeling clear. I like feeling electromagnetically balanced, right? The body, mind, spirit. And then I tack on the energy to that, because electromagnetics is something that I really love studying. I really love understanding. And also, I've talked about this here on the show, that most of our universe, and of course us too, and everything we touch, taste, feel, interact with, 70 to 80% of that is actually space. This is dark matter. So the things that we're seeing manifest physically in different labs. So when you work with clients to go through their lab results and see, how they're toxic, I actually really want to do a little bit of a talk screen with you too. And you're like one of the best people to do this with. So everybody, please get to know Diane. She's awesome. Again, huge thanks to you for really opening my eyes to a lot of this stuff, because I was just as brainwashed as the rest of the aesthetic community. Oh, neurotoxins, it can't be that bad for you, right? I mean, when you say it like that, it's kind of an interesting concept. So yes, let's move on to some of the topics that you are really you're really expertly versed in. How can we live a more non-toxic lifestyle, which is why we're speaking to social media, using your devices, EMFs, because this is a huge element of toxicity. I talk a lot about water, air, lighting, and electromagnetics in the home, office, living space environment that are really contributing to our toxins. And how can we do this to enhance our skin and rejuvenation practices? I'm putting in my papers, you got to be as empty as possible in toxic bucket before considering any type of rejuvenation procedure. But I'd love for you to add to this.
Oh yeah, but I'm trying to see if I have this document around here, because one of the things that we're giving to your audience today, I made these lists over years of research, because it's a lot. It's a lot to stay on top of. 2,000 plus new chemicals, most of which are toxic, that are introduced into our environment every year. And I'm not saying any of this to overwhelm you, because I've streamlined and simplified this as much as humanly possible, to what I'm going to give to you guys as a checklist of these things that you might think, oh God, I live in an organic lifestyle. I do a lot of non-toxic beauty. I've already got that covered. But there's a lot of things that have been introduced, especially in the last couple of years, that people are not aware of. And I don't say that to scare you, I say it to aware you. So there's things that over the years that get introduced, and less than 2% of them are actually tested for safety. And that's a scary fact, that we think and assume that everybody's looking out for us that have a 3-letter organization, but they're not. There's over 75,000 chemicals, most of which are toxic. And the average
There's a couple conflicts of interest in a bunch of those organizations too.
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. No. And the thing is that it's an accumulative effect too, right? It's like they'll actually approve something. People don't know this, but another good documentary to watch is Bleeding Edge. And you can see how they approve these devices. And so what they'll do is they'll say, this device or toxin is approved because it looks very similar to this one, or maybe not very, but it looks kind of similar to that one. And they'll approve it just because it looks like something else that they've maybe sort of tested. And they don't look at 2 toxins or chemicals and how they can create other several thousands of reactions within the body that cause symptoms and sickness and suffering. And
I see this in rejuvenation devices and treatments as well. It's like, this will get approved because it's based on this technology that was studied, say, at Harvard in 1980s, like cryolipolysis, for example.
What does that mean?
So cryolipolysis is a rejuvenation application that uses cold to kill fat cells. It basically, fat cells can enlarge or shrink if you gain weight or lose weight. And then they can actually be told to die through hot and cold. So in the 1980s, it was noted that when kids were eating popsicles, they were actually having some of their buccal fat pad waste away. And that was actually called popsicle paniculitis. It's also noted in equestrian riders, when they were riding in cold temperatures, they were losing extra fat on their backside. So then it was studied at Harvard. It's like, what is this connection between fat and cold? Let's make some money on this. And then I'm not going to say the brand name of the technologies, but then this technology came about, and then all these other technologies are coming about, kind of like to piggyback on these concepts. And that's what happens in the rejuvenation space too. So what is my rule, everyone? You always want to wait 7 to 8 years before exposing yourself to anything new. Do not make yourself a guinea pig just because someone says it's safe and effective. Don't believe it. Be a skeptic. Go by the third-party independent lab test. And what you said about toxins, said this before on the show, UK bans 1,300 ingredients, Canada bans 500 ingredients, and FDA only bans 11.
It's sick. It really is. To me, it's sick. because I see people who are sick and toxic. You know, we're not sick. We don't just catch colds. We don't just catch things. I can go on and on about that, but our body actually will release a fever or symptoms that mimic it. And we just, you know, are told to say or assume, oh, I caught a cold, or I caught a flu. That is actually victim consciousness and thinking that it's just running around and we just happen to get it. Our body doesn't actually just catch things. And I will say a caveat to that, which will be parasites, but there's something called the terrain theory. And that's something too that, you know, don't just believe me of what I'm talking about. There's something called the terrain theory and the germ theory. And the terrain theory essentially says that the more toxic that you are, the more hazardous chemicals inside of your body, the more that your tissues are inflamed. Inflammation is not the root cause of disease. Toxins are. And we don't just catch bugs. Bugs are there because they have to be, because of how toxic that we are. You know, the average baby today is born with 200, and this is a study that was done like 4 years ago, 276 toxins. The average baby was born. And the EWG did a research study on this and found that that's how many toxins the average baby was born with. And that's before they even took a breath or ate a bite of food. They ate their, you know, the mother's food. But that's why it's so important for mothers to consider what they're eating. And I recommend every woman do like a 3 to 6 month cleanse before she tries to conceive, because IVF therapy is 26% effective, and you're going to spend $15,000 on it. You can't get pregnant because you're likely very toxic. You can't build beauty because you're likely very toxic. You can't get energy because you're likely very toxic. So you asked about the things that I'd recommend is, you know, I have a 5D model that I'll walk us through. But the first thing is, you know, of course, the first thing that people want to do is I want to go detox. You know, I think it's very important detox. But I think equally important is to detox the environment that made you sick in the first place. And that might have been originally mom, because you were, you know, mom's roommate. You were the first one that was absorbing her toxins and her biome. You've inherited her biome, her bugs, in other words. So there's all these studies to say, well, genetics are the reason that we get diagnosed with whatever disease, and there's nothing that you could do but take this pill or remove this organ or do chemo or whatever. There's plenty of research that says that cancer is actually caused by parasites. There's plenty of research that indicates that Lyme disease, mold toxicity, bacterial overgrowth, and Candida is caused by parasites because they live inside of parasites. So we inherit the biome of our mother. And then we also, it gets more anchored in the first couple of years of our life, which is where we get our immune system from, is her breast milk, or not, because now, you know, baby formula is much better because it's engineered in the lab. Wink. So, you know, we get all of this is built by mom. And so for some of you, you may have been sick for a very, very long time. And it may have just been because you were toxic. So I actually created this list. And this is something that you guys will get using Rachel's links. I created a whole big blocking list, because the first thing people want to do is, how do I build my beauty? Or how do I build my energy? Or how do I build my immunity? And they want to take a bunch of pills. But and they want to say, what do I do? What do I do to build my beauty, energy, or immunity? And I say, let's talk about what you undo. So one of the big 5 Ds is to detox your environment. And of course, that's EMFs. Of course, that's like the broken, you know, the bully within that tells you need to be on social media. You need to do these things. You should, and you should all over yourself. But there's this list, and then they're all, I don't want to show it too closely, but it's all broken down: toxic water, toxic home, toxic air, toxic personal care, toxic female hygiene, toxic EMFs, toxic movements, toxic oral care. I have it all broken down in there. And then you can score that. And you can see, okay, what are the primary areas that I need to work on, or that I would like to work on? And so from there, you can go, oh my gosh, I had no idea that my environment was that toxic. And so I actually, because I got zapped by a cell tower really bad, and I became very electromagnetic sensitive overnight. And a big part of that is, you know, if you're on a heavy metal cleanse or a parasite cleanse, I'll talk about that a little bit later on why that actually can be an EMF attractor. When we have more heavy metals in us, we become more EMF sensitive or more RF sensitive. In my case, I had my friend Brian Hoyer come over, and I found that this very desk I'm sitting in right now, the goal would be that we have less than 50 microvolts of electric body voltage for our environment. And that would be the EMF, RF environment, all these different fields. For me, it wasn't less than 50. For me, it was actually in this very office chair that I sit, if you can even read those numbers, I was 1,300. and then 1600 in the room and next to the bed where I sleep, which is that number right over here on the pink one, right here on this side. So I had 1600 frequencies of electric body voltage that was pumping through my body when I was sleeping. And the goal would be no more than 50. So how toxic of an environment was I sleeping in that when your body is at rest, it's supposed to be repairing itself, regenerating, restoring, rebuilding. And you can't do that when you're in that stressed out environment, because that was, what is the math? 1500, 50, that was 30 times higher than an optimal state that I was swimming in these EMF and RF fields. So that's another big stressor. There's so many things to consider. That I don't say that to like make you want to live in a bubble, but when you find out these things that you can be aware and you can biohack and you can know better.
Yeah, that's perfect segue into what I wanted to mention. People, they have health issues and they consult with a practitioner, be like, what's wrong with me? But they don't always have time to talk about, well, what's your environment like? They want to be able to give that client an option, a script maybe then and there to get them on their way and give them something in an effort to help them right away. But really, like right away, the free stuff, clean up your water, your lighting, your air, and electromagnetics. Sorry, if you were watching me, I was actually looking for my RF reader. It's somewhere in my office here. And I was really surprised at the amount of dirty electricity in my home too. I literally live next to farmland and a forest, but the electric and outside it's really low, but in the home, it's an older home. So yes, of course, I'm fully aware of the mold concept. So I have air purifiers everywhere. But I've also heard that mold and parasites and bacteria don't grow as well in petri dishes that are actually contained in a Faraday cage. So they're actually getting limited electromagnetics. So I really want to find the study that talked about that to add validity to that. But when we're talking about bacteria, parasites, other types of things that literally leech on our life force, we have to think about that. Personally, I take antiparasitics all the time. And this is something that I think is really important to me. We get parasites from lots of different places, like different foods, different public bathrooms. And I drink a lot of water outside too, like river water, waterfall water. Now I do actually purify it with a life straw. But I really, the idea of lab-made breast milk, that sounds super convenient. So we have to take a moment to remember that convenience isn't always healthy. Like LED lighting compared to halogen lighting, LED is more convenient, but halogen is much more healthy for you with that full spectrum of life. So I'm really excited to actually take your program myself too, because I'm also in that preconception phase. I don't know if Javier and I are going to try a little later this year or next year. So I am 100% I'm not drinking alcohol or anything like that. And we tend to forget about the importance to detox the body prior to conception. And my dear mom is a nurse, and sometimes she'll joke about, she's probably watching this. Sorry, Mom.
Hi, Mom.
But I gotta say something that's not great though. My mom's a nurse, and while she was pregnant with my sister and I, she was literally around things like factor 8 and radiation. And when I was growing up, I was plagued with chronic ear infections, had to have multiple ear surgeries. And sure enough, asked my parents, was there mold in the house? I thought I heard a story of we moved and then there's all this mold behind your waterbed headboard. It was like, oh dear goodness, that's the root cause. So if any of you in your homes are having ear issues, nose issues, you need to look at this as well. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, thank you. I was going to say I have something to add to that. That was beautifully intuitive. There's a new toxin in town, and it's one that I've been doing research on with clinical directors of the supplement company that I really respect, not just because they do a lot of research and they're on top of the latest and the not greatest, the latest toxins that are impacting us. But to your point about ear infections and these kind of rogue symptoms that show up that doctors might pass off as just a bacterial overgrowth, you need an antibiotic, and then they will just antibiotic you to literal death, not you to death, but one round of antibiotics can take 1 to 2 years on average for your biome to recover from without extra assistance. And then a lot of times we're seeing that we're actually kind of like bees. We can take 1 round of antibiotics and kill off a lot of the healthy flora, and they might not be able to grow back. So it's kind of like what's replicating as above, so below, is that we've lost a huge percentage of our animal kingdom, our insect kingdom. And when these things die, we can't just get them back. They're gone. And so what's happening is the antibiotics are irresponsibly prescribed, especially fluoroquinolones. They have fluoride in them, and that's one of the, it's a high class drug that is handed out more than anything else. It's a Cipro is one example. Ruptures your Achilles tendon. I ruptured my Achilles tendon after I took Cipro, after I got my breast implants out. So I had 3 surgeries in 2019. That was really fun, but actually God gives me lessons so I could help liberate other people. So I look at it like that, and it's okay. So the thing I was, to go back to the point of, mold, one point is that, I don't know if you look at Klinghard's research, but Klinghard did a study and found that mold can grow up to 600 times more in the presence of EMF fields if it's next to a Wi-Fi device. And he also did a study and found that women who birth children, not just that because there's this whole debate on what causes autism, right? And they found that actually what caused autism in this specific study is that moms were around EMF fields, and that was actually a big contributor to the reason why they had babies born on the spectrum. So that's another really big thing. And of course, you could look at it with like the connection, the 50,000 foot view, is that all of these things, they come together and they amplify symptoms or conditions. And so, this big toxin in town that is, beyond now mold even to consider is radium. If you look at and do a DuckDuckGo search for the radium belt, you'll find that a lot of places that have had higher incidences of Lyme diagnosis, there's a lot more radium in those areas. And so it's technically like a mineral metal, but it's more like a radioactive element. So not to be confused with other things. But radium is something that we're seeing as a huge problem. And a lot of these radioactive elements will actually be the very thing that attracts lead into bones and is the main root cause for osteoporosis. And if you're losing bone, you're also losing, the key components to what makes beauty. So that's another big one, is that people don't realize that how much these radioactive elements are contributing to our symptoms. And, they think they're doing, check, I've got a Brita filter, or even sometimes a Berkey filter that I've done a lot of research on recently that's nowhere near as good as I thought it was. And it is not addressing radioactive elements. So when you can look at all of these toxins and realize that they all play a role, and that we need to get rid of them and do it effectively, then you can feel better. And those are the things that I have on that list. And, not just radium, but, to your point with mold, is that parasites for me, and then the research I've done in the 12 years I've been working with people and doing lab testing, parasites are the single greatest problem that we are experiencing. And the biggest literal suckers, I was going to say robbers, but it's more appropriate to say suckers, because parasites, that's what they do. They gobble up a lot of your amino acids so that you end up neurotransmitter deficient. Amino acids are the building blocks of our beautiful hair or skin, or maybe you don't feel so beautiful. They also are consuming the things that can help heal the lining of your intestines. That actually is what radiates your beauty from within. So that the healthier your gut is, the healthier that your beauty is on the outside, which is why it's so impressive what you've been doing, Rachel. We can build our beauty when we're doing it from the inside out. We're getting rid of these toxins, that then the more toxins that you have, the more parasites you have. And the more parasites that you have, the more that they're accumulating a lot of these toxic waste inside of them. And also the other pathogens and infections that can grow, because Lyme and mold, they hide very well in parasites. Parasites will do their job to hide them. So that, and imagine you take like an antibiotic. Well, if parasites are doing their job, they're holding that, they're protecting and holding and storing those bacterias inside of them. And then they're also building a heavy metal wall, which is called biofilm, that they could safely protect themselves in. So you could take all the antibiotics in the world. And I see this time and time and again. I have new clients that have taken 5 rounds of antibiotics, including IV drips of antibiotics, have not felt any better. Their ear infection didn't go away. Their eye infection didn't go away. Their postnasal drip and their nasal infection didn't go away after 5 rounds of antibiotics. And that's because these bugs are so adaptive, and we really need to go after them if we want our vitality and beauty and energy and all the things that we're after.
And we also have to get to the root cause. So it's like, if I experience pain from whiplash, or I could just tell my body's kind of fighting something, I won't pop something to mask the pain. I'll actually feel it, be like, okay, my body's a little inflamed. I can take these, this certain stack that I have to help. And ladies and gentlemen, there is not one hair, skin, and nails beauty supplement out there. It's going to be a combination approach of improving your immune support, your adrenal health, your hormone health, your sleep, your thyroid, all sorts of things. And what you said about amino acids, I'm actually doing an amino acid cleanse right now. I'm going to go through the whole thing before I say which one it is and all sorts of things. But I will share. But amino acids are truly the building blocks of our DNA, of ourselves, of our lives, of us. And this is really important. The other thing I wanted to clarify that radiation, there's a couple of different forms, non-ionizing, which is like electromagnetics from our devices, and ionizing radiation, which is like the radium. So taking your Epsom salt baths, like 2 cups of Epsom salts, 1 cup of borax, 1 cup of baking soda, throw in some of my favorite pineapple body oil, really good, super old school detox, sweat for like 20 minutes in the tub, do your detoxes in the sauna. It's really important. So oh yeah, you got your sauna back. That's awesome. So because I'm doing a detox right now, I'm doing a cleanse, I'm eating way too many carbohydrates. I'm like, dang, this is like swimsuit season and I'm feeling bloated. I gotta get off this quick. So I can do a cleanse.
Yeah.
What are some approaches you see people try when they think they're doing a proper cleanse, but it ends up failing?
Oh God, this is so big. Okay. I'm going to start by saying, no shame, you guys, because I've been doing cleansing myself. I started this 12 years ago, and I've done things. I'm not even going to say the wrong way, because I feel like all paths lead to a better way. And so we can only, do better when we know better. So hopefully I can help you guys know better when you approach a cleanse. And so, a big part of it I've already kind of been talking about, which is that if you're just going after a bug and you just go after taking like an antibiotic or something, all that's doing is hurting your body in the end. And I'm going to say again, like Rachel says, this is not medical advice. We're not your doctors, but just know that there's a consequence. And that if you're just taking the pill thinking that that's going to avoid your ill, then you might be for some serious consequences. And it's harder to build your body when it's had that wildfire, that because that's what an antibiotic is. It's a wildfire, and it kills all the good stuff and the bad stuff. But then nobody's teaching you how to go back and add life back into the soil. So there is a path, and I'll talk about it after I answer this question, where you can pull the weeds and then plant the seeds. But you never just want to do one or the other. You want to do both at the same time, and that can make it much more effective. So I actually have top 10 cleanse fails. I wrote this in my book years ago, and I've written a couple books. There's several ebooks in the course that you guys will get the free module for. I've been writing lots of ebooks and amending them to the newest toxins and the exposures that we have. And so in that book, I talk about the top 10 cleanse fails, and I'll just list them. Number 1 is not addressing the mind-body connection. Number 2 is using cheap or toxic cleanse supplements. Number 3 is not using powerful binders and detox strategies to carry toxins out of the body properly. Number 4 is not consuming cleansing foods that support detox, whether on the cleanse or after it. Number 5 is cleansing without simultaneously opening up eliminatory pathways, which is part of the 5D approach I can talk about next. Number 6 is cleansing while not getting proper rest. And you could also say and add to that, while sleeping in a huge electromagnetic frequency field while you're sleeping. Number 7 is cleansing without properly hydrating. Number 8 is incomplete cleanses that miss organs or address them in the wrong order. And this one is huge. I talk about that in the free module that you guys can grab. Number 9 is cleansing without proper labs and assessments to examine toxic load. Number 10 is not cleansing for long enough or finishing, but going back to the unhealthy lifestyle that created the need to cleanse in the first place. Because people say, I feel so good. And I see this all the time. Then they backslide. And it's kind of like, breaking up with the toxic relationship partner that is hurting you. And then you're like, oh man, but I miss them. And you go back and it's toxic all over again. So it's kind of equivalent. I think humans can be a little bit, we're a little sadistic that way, but there's a lot of things that people do with cleansing. And I think a big one is that, they'll go after Candida cleanse. Candida cleansing, just like the bacteria I was talking about, or the Lyme or the mold, they hide inside of these parasites. And so if we don't go after where these bacteria or where this Candida lives, then you might do a Candida cleanse. And I see this one, and I bring up Candida, I would say Candida, mold, and Lyme are kind of in that same sphere, but more so people are going after Candida. And I just see it more commonly. People go on a Candida cleanse. They completely deplete themselves from the things that they enjoy. And I'm not saying that sugar, we should all be consuming it, because I think that the average human's eating like 150 pounds of it per year, between sugar and wheat, like 150 pounds. That's how much probably you and I weigh. Like, that's a crazy visual. So I think that we do need to cut back. But people go, I don't eat fruit. I've been doing this crazy Candida cleanse. I'm exhausted. I feel worse. And they do it for 3 months. They spend a lot of money on it. And I don't want to see you fail like that and feel like you've done so much work, but it didn't actually take you across the finish line. And you feel like, man, I must be broken. I must be broken then. I guess I'm just destined to suffer. And it's not that. It's just that it's not comprehensive. When you go after the parasites and you go after the 70 to 80 toxins that they release when you kill them, and go after them with the proper binders, make sure they're leaving exit. The exit door is right there. That's your eliminatory pathways. That's the D in drainage. So when we're doing it properly and you're working on the 5 Ds, which are very simple, number 1 is drainage. You want to make sure you have energy and drainage so that when you do a cleanse, those pathways are open so they have an exit door to leave, that they're not just recirculating and going back up into the brain, causing more problems, or your body will make new fat cells, or they'll expand your current fat cells because they're less toxic there. So that's why you can't lose weight, right? Number 2 is to detox. You can start the detox after you focus on drainage. And that's actually like supplements and working through all the different stages of parasites and things like that, because you want to go after the parasites and all the bugs within them, as well as the heavy metals. The third thing is detoxing your environment. And this little list that I had here for you guys, detoxing your environment, because if you go through a cleanse and you don't detox the environment, then you're going to be toxic all over again, and you're going to think that the cleanse didn't work. So you want to clean your environment. This is biohacking, of course, too. And then the third thing is fourth thing, it's not always in this exact order, but you want to have a detox diet. If you're eating a crappy diet, you can't out supplement a bad diet. So you want to make sure that you're also, fiber is God's given detox hack. A lot of people are not getting enough fiber. And so I think people in the keto land will go too far keto and then they forget about fiber. And you'll hear a whole bunch of other people, contradicting that. And then the last thing is doing diagnostic tools and assessments to assess, like you said earlier, Rachel, what are the toxins that I might have? And everybody's different there. So I might change and alter I have 6 different binders that I use, and 4 to 5 different parasite herbs that I recommend when I'm doing one-on-one things with people, depending on the types of toxins that they have. So there might be glyphosate, there might be BPA, there might be beauty toxins, there might be VOCs, volatile organic compounds. They might have really high heavy metals because they maybe removed their cellular fillings, but they never went back and cleansed the off-gassing of mercury that ended up in their brain, and they're wondering why their brain's not working. So we've got to go back in there and pull those things out. And a good cleanse takes a good deep dive takes a good 1 to 2 years. And I don't say that to overwhelm you, but when you get started on the right momentum, then you know how long it might take you, because certain people might have really high levels of aluminum or really high levels of lead. And again, going back to that lead, if you have high levels of lead, you probably have high levels of radium as well, because those things go hand in hand in the bones. And you're not just getting old, and you're not just have brittle bones, and your gums aren't receding just because. But a lot of these toxins will stay very hidden in the body until they're provoked properly. And when you do it comprehensively in that 5D approach that I'm talking about, then you can get all the toxins out, and it's not painful. Because if you start detoxing without focusing on drainage first, it could be painful, and then you'll quit and go, well, that sucked. That hurt really bad. I don't want to do that again. I have a headache. When you know what to expect, and you know that's part of the detox process, then you know, okay, I either slow down my detox or I give my body extra things so that it can let go of toxins at a rate that my body's comfortable with. But you can't rush detox. It takes time, it takes patience, and it takes true commitment, because you really want to be healthy and you want to be a good self-parent to yourself, to self-love and self-care, so that you can get to that nourishing and nurturing state, and you get rid of the root causes, and there's no place for parasites anymore. Because if there's no more toxins in the body, which there's never none, but if there's less toxins in the body, then the parasites don't have a job, because the terrain has been tonified.
Oh, wow. You're such a wealth of information. First of all, I would love you to email me your beauty toxin list, because for those of you tuning into the show, I am in the process of formulating my own supplements and also my own skincare line, pulling from my background in Gen Chem, Organic Chem, Biochem, over 10 years in the industry, and my connections with experts like you in the space of toxins. So please send me that. And also wanted to just actually add something. So I started a cleanse, what was that, about 2 days ago. And before that, I just wasn't feeling great. I had a cold, like having some gut stuff. I'm like, something's up. I got to finally do this cleanse that I have. And then yesterday I went for a run. I had tons of energy. I had more mental clarity. Today it's like, I'm focused. I have definitely like what brain fog. Probably heard me in a past episode talk about, oh, sorry, I have a bit of brain fog, not feeling great. I'm like, I'm back. So I'm curious if when people are doing cleanses, if you see certain things, and also my HRV last night shot right back up to my norm, which is amazing, just being on a cleanse. So do you find that some people, when they start a cleanse, they feel like really bad, or some people, when they start a cleanse, they just like immediately feel better? Because that's where I am. And I'm just curious what that's saying about me, because I have already been on the, antiparasitics, the FLCCC protocols. I'm staying positive about everything, supporting myself. So what's your analysis on that? The fact that I'm feeling so good right off the gate.
Yeah, that's a good question, Rachel. I'm glad that you asked that for people out there, because I think that everybody tends to assume, and this is not even assume, I think we've been programmed, right? That, and I'm just going to use what we've seen the most. I don't even watch TV anymore. I haven't for 12 years. But if you do watch TV, or everybody knows what a prescription drug commercial sounds like. It's like, do you sometimes feel this way? And then talk to your doctor, and then take this drug, and side effects may include, right? So it's kind of like the same thing with a cleanse, is that side effects may include, and there's a long list of how every body is going to react differently. And so I would say that the reason why you are probably not experiencing what's called Herxheimer reactions, which is essentially to say that if you go on a cleanse and you feel worse, it's because something in that 5D I was talking about, and I think it's funny because we talk about the fifth dimension too. So it's kind of like a multifactorial there. But it's because one of those 5Ds or a combination of those 5Ds is not optimal for you. So for example, when I work with clients, and I would tell them, I keep repeating the same thing all the time. And I could also talk about 10 binders that people tend to think are good for them, but they're actually not as comprehensive as the ones that I like to use in my practice. And I've seen that work really, really well with patients. And I say patients because I work with a lot of doctors' offices and their patients. And I'm like the in-between care, because like you said, they have 8 minutes or whatever to do what they do. And then they go home and they feel great for a few days, but then they don't feel good again and they come back. But I don't want that to keep happening. I want to be the momentum that they keep building toward health. So what I see is that, let's say somebody's drainage pathways aren't open, and let's say that they're not sweating. And I pointed to my sauna behind me and my book behind me, you can probably see. But that's really one way of detoxifying is through the skin. And for many chemicals, toxins, the only way out is through the skin. So they can't get out through phase 1, 2, 3 detoxification.
The skin is the largest organ of our body as well. Just saying.
Just saying, it's kind of a big deal. It's only the third kidney, but I think it's really like the first kidney in terms of it's got the most surface area, and healthy skin and healthy detoxification is also predicated on your lymphatic flow and your lymphatic movement. The two biggest things that will stagnate your lymph one is dairy. It's absolutely dairy. If you're eating dairy, then I'm not saying, stop your dairy, but I'm saying that you can always try food elimination for one thing for 3 weeks and try and see how much better you feel. So that's a really big one that people are consuming. And then, you can also try getting off of eggs. Eggs can certainly stagnate the lymph as well. So I'm not saying you have to stop those things, but those are things that I walk people through in my cleanse course. Every module goes through do we start in the right order? We go through a colon cleanse so that your drainage pathways are open. Then we move into your liver and your gallbladder. You know, the number one surgery performed at the ER clinics or now these days is a gallbladder removal, not because you have an air quotes bad gallbladder or you're genetically screwed, but because you've got stagnant, you know, blocks in the bile ducts and we don't have enough flow there. So that if somebody doesn't have healthy bile flow or lymphatic flow, then they're going to feel worse and they might backslide. They might think, oh my God, it's not working for me. So what I would say to them, you know, that's all drainage, right? Because we detox through the skin, we detox through, and there's certain chemicals and toxins that we detox through the bowels. Those are fat soluble toxins. And then there's other water soluble toxins that can only leave through the kidneys and when you urinate. And then there's certain ones that only can be released through the mouth when we breathe. In the last couple of years, several people has, you know, their faces have been blocked. And so we're essentially choking back our own toxic burden that our body's trying to excrete. So we are in a crisis state in humanity. And we really need to focus on what I call ABC, always be cleansing. So if somebody's not, which you are clearly, Rachel, for people who are not focused on it, ABC, in some way, always be cleansing. Detoxing is a bit more like, okay, you do that, you know, parasite cleansing, you do twice a year. And you do, the first time you do it for 3 months and go after all the life cycles of the parasites. And then after that, for maintenance, you do 1 month out of the, you know, every 6 months, and you do it during a full moon. And that's what I teach, is how to do this alongside with nature and Mother Nature, because parasites can travel throughout the body a lot more when there's higher levels of serotonin, and then that happens during the full moon. So I actually have a whole, you know, protocol on that. So that's why a lot of people I see that cleansing will work for them, detox will work better for them if their drainage pathways are open, if they have enough mitochondrial support, if they have less blockers in their life that are causing them to, you know, rob the nutrients in their body. And then also, so when my clients feel like, oh, they say, I feel really bad today, I have a headache, I'll say 2 things. Number 1, bump up your drainage pathways. Make sure that you're doing like a castor oil pack or coffee enema or a good sweat in your sauna, or do some rebounding or stand on a vibration plate or get outside Mother Nature, go for a walk, you know, get your body moving, get your lymph flowing, right? And then the second thing is maybe you need to add more binders. You know, maybe we're pushing toxins throughout your body and your body's trying to let them go, but we don't have enough binders that are strong enough on board to get them out. And so I make sure we're using the right binders at the same time. There's a lot more to it, you know, making sure you have nutrients, mitochondria, but that's kind of the basics that I teach my clients so they can be their own self-healers.
Yeah, I think it's been really interesting doing this cleanse journey. And the weird thing is that I haven't really been hungry because it's a cleanse that I'm on, you know, tons of amino acids on, lots of good things to support my body. But tell us about your detox program and your Warrior Cleanse module, plus 10% off supplements and $50 off the Warrior Cleanse course. And everyone is invited to join. The link is in the description of this episode. So before people register, just like tell them what they're going to get out of it. What can they expect in regards to transformation, knowledge, insights, education that's going to last them for many years?
Yeah. I think the first thing here's how I like to start. This is a picture of me when I was a little girl. That's little Diane. And I want all of you to think about the child within you who is yearning for more love.
I actually keep a picture of myself and a picture of my mom as a kid in my office, just to like remind myself of that inner child too. That's cute that you do that too.
I think that that's the number one place that we all need to start with, because, you know, going back to how we started this interview today, or I should just say this discussion, is that we've all been programmed to trap ourselves in this prison, and that it's other people's responsibility to fix us, right? It's you know, the doctor will fix me, or the politicians will rescue us from this, you know, crazy economic downturn that we're experiencing, or, you know, that the preachers will save me and forgive me, and or my parents, it's my parents' job, or it's my partner's job to love me in a way that I should be. So I just like to start there, that it's our job, and it's also our privilege to be our own best parents, to look out for ourselves. And there's nothing wrong with you being selfish, because people think it's selfish, but really, in order to be more selfless, you got to start with being more selfish. And like Rachel said, talk about like, whoa, bye-bye brain fog. You're more clear. You can get more done without being exhausted at the end of the day. Like, your family and friends and your boss or whoever that you work with that is, air quotes, relying on you to be present for them in whatever way, they deserve that. So that's what I start with in that module, is just to say, what are the things in your life that where are you giving yourself away? Where do you have energy leaks? Where are you
social media posting and scrolling? Hello.
Totally. And that's like an EMF energetic parasite too. It's also,
and AI. Let's not forget about AI. I was actually just before this listening to an Ayurvedic doctor talking about technological influences on the body. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I mean, if you want to go into Native American, the Wetiko spirit is the one that makes everybody so narcissistic. Now, this is the shadow side of being selfish, is that we end up being a narcissist, and it's all about us, and it's all about, our influence. And just like you, Rachel, the moment I stopped doing social media and just had partnerships like this, where we're helping each other out and helping, the people that we're, influencing in our own little realms, my business catapulted like 5x. I literally 5x'd my business and the amount of people that I was supporting and the relationships. So it was interesting. I pulled myself away from social media. Of course, had a little bit of a scare tactic, a little fear on that because of fear of the unknown, but everything has gone better since then. So so that's really important, is to realize that it's okay to have your moment of slowing down and self-caring and self-loving. So I start there. And then I also help you guys do some exercises that you ask yourself, where are my leaks? Where are my energy leaks? You can't bioidentical energy leaks away. It's important to also say, what, healthy boundaries. I don't need to do that anymore. That's social media could be a 2-hour energy time suck. And those could be 2 hours that you might be investing in learning how to be a good steward of your soul and, what we carry, which is our physical template of that. So I start there. And then, of course, I get into how to start your cleanse and moving into what are the things in your life that are blocking you from your greatest health, and getting rid of, I'm serious, every single disease you can get rid of when you embark on a comprehensive cleanse. And then I also have something in there that says that if you want to start diving into this, you can get $50 off if you want to go through the full protocol, the full DIY cleanse. And then you can do it supplements as well. These supplements are no joke. They're the kind of supplements that help you detox. So they're the weed and the seed. There's no other supplements I've seen that does this well with carbon-based technology. It is strong bonds to pull the bad stuff out, the weeding, and then also the seeding, adding good stuff, nutrients, electrolytes, polysaccharides to help repopulate the good flora in your gut. So it's doing both in one, so you don't end up having to take like 20 supplements and wonder why you don't feel better and what's the whole system all about. People end up, I buy this supplement because of this one thing, I buy this one supplement, you end up like with a ton of supplements and they're not working together. So these things work together and in steps so that you can cleanse your body, heal your hormones, your gut, and your brain, and then you can ignite those dreams that you really want for yourself. Because I think a lot of us have realized in the last couple of years how we're in a prison, we're doing things that don't really illuminate or ignite us. And we really want to move toward those things that we feel spiritually and soulfully called toward. And you can do that when you have a clearer mind. And, you can't really listen to your gut when it's full of poop and you can't listen to your gut feeling. So we cleanse out the gut, we cleanse out all the cells, like your whole body gets renewed and transformed from the inside out. And then 10% on the supplements too with your code.
Amazing. And the link to join Diane is in the description of this episode. One of the things you mentioned, I just want to end this session with like a positive note. And you said a better way. And there's actually quite a huge conference in the UK that just happened called the Better Way, or a Better Way conference. And they were talking about these parallel systems that are starting to happen. So when you support practitioners and humans like Diane and I, you're, essentially helping to contribute to that as well, because this is something that we are working hard, because we're noticing that the structures that are in place right now are crumbling. There are some good positive things that are happening. So just remember that for every not so good thing you hear in the news, that's, social media is designed to keep you in a fear state anyways. Oh, in case you missed it, one of the big reasons I actually turfed Instagram, it was like the icing on the cake. I was direct messaging Melanie Avalon. She's like, oh, come visit me. And I said, oh, I'm not really into traveling right now, going to the airports, because of like EMFs and non-ionizing radiation, part of that preconception phase. And I use the word preconception. And then Instagram, both on my personal and professional feeds, inundated both feeds, like constant, like every post almost of sick babies and sick kids. So that was just so friggin' obvious to me that there's it was very weird. It was very, very weird. And I just wonder like how many people, they say something in a direct message and they don't put two and two together, that what they're talking about, oh, Alexa shows them this, or, oh, their Google browser that shows them this ad. So there are better ways and better things that are coming forth. So just stay positive, stay grounded, centered, balanced, and aligned, stay detoxified, stay pure, be your most beautiful, radiant, vibrant version. And do you have any closing words for us today here, Diane?
Yeah. I love that you brought that back to that, because the laws of the universe is that if you see dark rising, light is rising with it. Everything is a spectrum, right? And so there's the polarities. And what we see with the polarities is that if we're seeing a lot of, air quotes, negative or bad things that just feel so good, that doesn't feel very good inside of me to see that these things are happening, it's the weed and the seed concept. So I'm happy to see that these big weeds are getting pulled out of our goddess and our god gardens, because we get to plant new life and new ways, new systems, new structures, new partnerships, new tribes. Things have to fall in order for us to co-create a better way. And so it's the weed and seed concept. It's not just like we were talking about antibiotics earlier, which goes after everything and kills everything. Well, with like the supplements I was talking about, we're weeding and seeding. We're doing both. So things have to, and they get to, and we get to create from this scratch, this nothingness, this void. So it's beautiful. Every time I see that something, air quotes, bad is happening, I also then will look for it and it will find me. But when the curious students will find it, there's the good thing that's coming to replace it. So we can only see it if we choose to be optimistic. That's part of the courage acronym. Is the O is optimism. And optimism is having that positive framework that it's not just that the sky is falling. It's not just Chicken Little. It's that things are happening in divine intentions. And that I always say to myself all day long, things are always happening in my favor. Things are always happening in the way that God intended. But I'm not sitting back and just letting them happen. I'm also co-creating with people like Rachel. So it's all divine. It's all divine. I used to be like, oh my God, the things in the sky, they're spraying. It's all so bad. And then I finally caught myself going, but we're birthing ourselves out of the darkness. So we can't see the beautiful bright stars at night without the darkness. So when we can see that balance is there and we're all co-creating it, and we all have both of those things within us, then we can find the blessings in it. And if we didn't get sick or feel bad, we wouldn't learn the way to find wellness either. So everything is birthed out of the suffering or pain. And I think it's great to celebrate that those are the things that woke us up.
You couldn't have stated that more eloquently and also more comically, because on the island I live in, they've been doing like 4 days of aerial spraying for gypsy moths. And I had like this weird nasal pain. I was not feeling good. So there's an example of why it's important to stay on top of living a non-toxic, beauty, health, vibrant lifestyle. And we need to follow up to this as well, talking about your rejuvenation journey and how sick you got from some of your intervention. I've seen some of your photos and just how crazy inflamed your eyes were after certain like very common rejuvenation procedures. So we're going to talk about that in a second episode, but you're going to be okay. You're here on the show. You're, exposing yourself to positive content. And you don't really know about the woes of the world until you open this thing up or turn the news on. So if you're needing a little bit of a detox, just, turn outside interferences on. Be very careful. The people you're getting advice from, look at their eyes. Are they doing something just a little bit better than you? Do they have something to offer you? Or do they look flat? Do they look low vibe? is their skin inflamed? Look at who you're learning from. Look at who your teachers are. Look at who you're supporting with your time and energy, and support those that, you really think are adding value to your life and also to others. So thank you, Diane, for joining us here on the show. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in here live and listening on the Rachel Varga podcast, where I do, more of my audio only, almost daily content there. If you have any questions from today's episode, feel free to email me info@rachelvarga.ca. And I have like 80 emails to get back to from my fabulous one-on-one clients. I'm doing a supplement sale right now too. So I'm really excited to share your offering with the community. I'm going to send out a newsletter too when this goes on the podcast. So if your detox program. So thank you for the work that you're doing, Diane. I'd love for you to actually just schedule another follow-up. And then when I'm on your podcast, I'll be sure to share that with the community here as well, so that all of you can tune in and catch some things that we're going to say, and that I'll maybe be a little bit more off the cuff too, which will be an exciting one. Have a great day, everybody. Yeah, it'll be good. All right. Bye, everyone. Have an amazing day.